Jay is full go for the 2023 season. However, he did pop up on the injury report on Thursday, limited with an ankle injury.
We are getting ready for our next weather maker. That will lead to showers and storms tonight, and unfortunately, we have more rain and storms for the rest of the weekend. Tomorrow, we're looking at highs around 88. The heat wave will break, but it's still going to be hot and steamy. Showers and storms arrive later in the day, and they'll likely impact your night. Showers and storms continue on Sunday, and we're mainly talking the afternoon for those showers and storms. Otherwise, temperatures will be a little lower and closer to average. Highs will be in the mid-80s, but rain and storms could impact your plans for the Ravens game. Coming up in about 20 minutes, I'll have a closer look at the timing for the rain and storms and when to expect drier weather. Back to you.
Jasmine, thank you. Coming up on Fox 45 News at 6 o'clock, Marilyn Mosby's upcoming federal trial moved out of Baltimore. Word that her trial will be split into two. And Dunbar's football coach arrested by the FBI. We're live with the investigation into overtime fraud.
Breaking news, 2 legal victories for former City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby in her upcoming federal trial, why her case is moving out of Baltimore. Also breaking, the FBI has arrested a Baltimore City football coach and school police officer accused of overtime fraud. We have the latest developments. And Congressman Andy Harris throwing his support behind school choice. He tells Fox 45 why the current system isn't working.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 6.
Tonight, Fox 45 is following 2 big breaking stories. On your left, the FBI has arrested a city school's football coach and school police officer for overtime fraud and alleged attempts to avoid paying taxes. Our cameras capturing him leaving the courthouse this afternoon. This is the latest development on the investigation our Project Baltimore team first told you about. On your right, a federal judge grants the request from former City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby to move her trial out of Baltimore. Another victory. The 4 federal charges she's facing will be split into 2 separate trials. Good evening, I'm Maxine Stryker. Thanks for staying with us. We begin with Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor and the latest on Mosby's trial.
Well, it's the second time Mosby's lawyers requested that her trial be moved. The first time it was denied, but this time her lawyers defended their argument with a survey and statistics. results that the prosecution refutes.
Despite the initial fight for a fast trial,
what I'm asking for is that I be tried right now.
Oh, we're pushing for trial.
Because I know that I'm innocent. So I'm ready to go to trial tomorrow.
Following back-to-back delays, not one, but two trials for former City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby, now set to take place in Greenbelt, Maryland.
Marilyn Mosby has made an obstacle of every part of this trial.
On Friday, federal judge Lydia Grigsby granting Mosby's second change of venue request after her defense commissioned a jury consultant to complete a survey, finding 45% of residents in the Baltimore City region believe Mosby is somewhat or very corrupt, compared to just 26% in Greenbelt. A contrast the defense argues was created by a barrage of media criticism. But the prosecution disputing the data with a survey expert of their own. That expert calling the survey flawed, claiming the question's wording created bias. Additionally, that expert pointing to an exceptionally low response rate. Of the 87,000 residents called, just 602 answered. The prosecution also accusing Mosby of generating much of the publicity on her own. Ultimately, though, Judge Grigsby siding with the defense, saying the data shows there is a significant gap between the two divisions. Grigsby going on to say a fair trial will be more likely in Greenbelt. In a separate ruling, the judge also deciding to separate Mosby's case in two, holding one trial for Mosby's 2 perjury charges and another for the 2 mortgage fraud charges. The defense arguing Mosby plans to take the stand in one case and exercise her right to remain silent in the other. Judge Grigsby granting the motion in an effort to protect Mosby's constitutional rights.
Any comment on Mosby's case being moved outside of Baltimore City?
No comment.
Despite staying silent outside of court, inside, the prosecution calling the decisions a colossal waste of resources.
Mosby will first be tried on her perjury charges. That trial is expected to begin on November 1st in Greenbelt, Maryland. Reporting from the federal courthouse, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
Well, let's catch you up on the trial. The 4 federal charges came down January of last year. Prosecutors say she lied about suffering financial loss because of the pandemic to tap into her city's retirement account without any penalty. Prosecutors say she then put $90,000 of that money to purchase 2 vacation homes in Florida. That's why she's facing the 2 counts of perjury. And for the other 2 charges, she's accused of making false statements when she's applied for mortgages on those Florida homes. It was last year when she lost the Democratic primary in her re-election run as city state's attorney. Earlier this year, her entire legal team of 6 lawyers stepped down from the case. The lead attorney, A. Scott Bolden, was facing criminal contempt because of comments that he made. Mosby is now being represented by James Wida, a federal public defender. The court found she was not able to afford legal representation. Jury selection begins October 31st. The trial is set to begin November 2nd. And also breaking tonight, Fox 45 News confirming the FBI has arrested Dunbar High School champion football coach Lawrence Smith. He's also a school police officer. Kai Jackson has the latest.
That's right. Maxine Smith is accused of fraudulently getting more than $215,000 in overtime and trying to avoid paying taxes on that money. On the right, our cameras caught him coming out of the federal court today with Clyde Boatwright. That's the federal court downtown. Several FBI vehicles were seen parked outside of the school building in a raid. This is one of those vehicles leaving right now. Smith is an 8-time state champion football coach at Dunbar High School. He's also a city schools police detective. Now, according to the indictment, between January of 2019 and August of 2022, Smith fraudulently received overtime pay for hours that he didn't work. Over $200,000 alleged in the scheme by federal prosecutors. Prosecutors also say he filed a false tax return for the tax year 2018. Now, on the left side of our screen, our cameras capture Smith as again he left federal court. If convicted, Smith faces a maximum sentence of 20 years in federal prison for each count of wire fraud, a maximum of 5 years for those tax charges, and a maximum of 3 years for filing a false tax return. Fox 45's Keith Daniels was at the courthouse today. He'll bring us a full report tonight on Fox 45 News at 10 o'clock. Maxine.
And for our entire coverage on the controversy surrounding Lawrence Smith, including Project Baltimore's investigation into his payroll, head to foxbaltimore.com. We're also following some breaking news out of Annapolis, where police are investigating a shooting that killed an 18-year-old. Officials say Trayon Hunt was shot and killed on Copeland Street. That's just north of Bywater Park. Police say no suspects have been found yet. The shooting happening near a Boys and Girls Club. We do know there's a school bus stop nearby as well. Police were telling parents to meet their kids around that area. Anyone with information is asked to call police or submit an anonymous tip through Metro Crime Stoppers. And we're still on weather alert tonight. This is a live look at our weather radar and cameras in Towson and the Inner Harbor. The heat that we've been feeling all week is expected to break with some storms. Meteorologist Jasmine Lomax is in now, tracking the threat of those storms across the Baltimore area. Jasmine.
Thanks, Maxine. We are under a slight risk for strong to severe storms. Notice all of the areas in yellow extending into New England. This is threat level 2 of 5, so make sure that you have multiple ways of receiving any alerts that may be issued. Now, we are still mostly dry around the Baltimore area, not much rain here, but as we look to our south and to our west, you can see some showers and storms starting to move into the state. We even have a few severe thunderstorm warnings. Now, as we head into the next few hours, we'll be dealing with showers and storms, and they could be strong, even severe, meaning heavy rain, gusty winds, and even the potential for hail. It's part of a larger weather maker. We've got a cold front that is to our north, and then to our south, a front that's stalled. Unfortunately, not just tonight, but throughout the weekend, we have multiple chances for rain and storms. Coming up, I'll have a closer look at the timing and when you can expect drier and cooler conditions in my Weather Authority forecast. Back to you.
Thank you, Jeff.
We have to deal with this. We have to deal with it realistically. We have to try a new approach.
Well, students across Maryland are back in class, but Maryland Congressman Andy Harris says it's time to reevaluate funding and enrollment at some of the state's public schools. Fox 45's Amy Simpson spoke with the congressman today and has the story.
Congressman Andy Harris throwing his support behind the concept of school choice, letting families decide how and where their tax dollars are spent for their child's education.
Another school year officially underway, but for Maryland Congressman Andy Harris, the status quo isn't working.
They have done the annual testing, and that Maryland schools, once again, don't perform very well.
Harris penning an op-ed this week in the Washington Examiner, the case for school choice in Maryland.
That parent should have a choice where to send their child. Now, it could be to another public school, it could be to a charter school, it could be to a private school, and if it's a private school, you should make a voucher available.
Recently published standardized test scores for the 2023 Maryland Comprehensive Assessment Program show less than 25% of the state's 3rd through 8th graders are proficient in math. In Baltimore City, less than 10% of that age group showing math proficiency.
Committing a child and that child's parent to a failing school is not the right thing to do.
Instead, Harris proposes a shakeup of how schools get their funding.
Since we're talking about public dollars, they should follow the student. That's it.
This comes as Maryland is in the midst of implementing the blueprint for Maryland's future. Legislation passed in 2021, pouring billions more into Maryland's public schools. But some districts have said they don't know how they'll pay for the education mandates on the local level.
Even if our commissioners raise taxes, they will not be able to raise them at the rate that will allow us to implement Blueprint.
I've got counties on the Eastern Shore that have said for the entire time since Kerwin has been passed that they cannot afford it.
It is putting a lot of stress on smaller school systems where they don't have the resources.
Harris saying it's time for a change, wanting to improve student outcomes statewide.
There's plenty of blame to go around. We should look past the blame. We should look to solutions. I think school choice is a better solution.
And just last month, Fox 45 reported on Maryland's Boost scholarships with nearly 5,000 recent applicants eligible for that school choice program here in the state, but current funding not able to fully meet the demand. Amy Simpson, Fox 45 News.
Also tonight, there's new information on that former Gilman teacher accused of sexually abusing children. Chris Bendon has been granted home detention before his trial. His release comes with strict conditions, including he's not allowed to use the internet. Bendon is charged with 5 counts of sexual exploitation of a child and 1 count of possession of child pornography. Prosecutors were fighting against his release, saying he's a threat to the community, while his defense argued he had no prior criminal activity and met pretrial release requirements.
A new warning about China using artificial intelligence to interfere in the 2024 election. I'm Atra El-Nashar with what, if anything, can be done at this point to stop it.
Microsoft issuing a warning about China-affiliated actors using AI-generated content to spread disinformation and sow discord ahead of the 2024 election. National correspondent Atra El-Nashar joins us live from Capitol Hill to explain just how it works. Atra?
Hey, good evening. Maxine, you know, this issue isn't necessarily new. Microsoft and other industry leaders observed China-affiliated actors engaging in this kind of behavior ahead of the 2022 midterm elections, impersonating U.S. voters online, for example. But Microsoft says starting in March of this year, they noticed these actors started using AI to take it to a whole new level.
Foreign efforts to manipulate American voters are growing in size and strength. Artificial intelligence is proving to be a powerful tool. In a new report, Microsoft's Threat Analysis Center describes covert influence operations affiliated with the Chinese Communist Party, posed as Americans across the political spectrum. Microsoft says CCP-affiliated accounts have uploaded pictures like this Black Lives Matter image, which was then reposted by an account impersonating a conservative voter, calling President Biden very extreme. And according to Microsoft, quote, leveraging the power of authentic voices, more than 230 state media employees and affiliates masquerade as independent social media influencers across all major Western social media platforms. They're not alone in sounding the alarm. Earlier this year, OpenAI CEO Sam Altman told a Senate panel the issue makes him nervous ahead of the election and called for disclosure requirements so users know when something's generated with AI.
When Photoshop came onto the scene a long time ago, you know, for a while people were really quite fooled by photoshopped images and then pretty quickly developed an understanding that images might be photoshopped. This will be like that, but on steroids.
In July, Never Back Down, a political action committee backing Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, put out this ad.
I opened up the governor position for Kim Reynolds.
Using AI to impersonate former President Trump's voice reading one of his real social media posts.
I don't invite her to events.
Nowhere in the ad is a disclosure that AI was used.
Now, we are seeing some action from the private sector. Maxine, Google and YouTube recently announced that they are starting in November requiring all political ads to feature a prominent disclosure if it includes any AI-generated or altered content.
And Atra, where do things stand on government regulation?
Well, especially when it comes to tech policy, legislation tends to move at a glacial pace here on Capitol Hill. However, the Federal Election Commission, the FEC, is asking for public comment on a proposal that they got from a public citizen that could include these kinds of AI political ads that use deceptive content, arguably perhaps what you just saw in that DeSantis ad, and include that under their umbrella of what's banned under a fraudulent misrepresentation in elections. On Tuesday, we're also going to see the Senate Judiciary Committee hold a hearing on legislation to regulate artificial intelligence, and one of the witnesses, coincidentally, will be Brad Smith, the vice chair and president of Microsoft.
All right. Atra Anashar, thanks so much for joining us here tonight.
Thanks.
Right now, you're taking a look over Towson and over Baltimore. We are dry, mostly cloudy, and very hot, but we have storms on the way, and you can see that on the HD radar. It's all as we deal with our next weather maker, and that could have impacts on not just your plans tonight, but over the entire weekend with more rain and storms expected. Notice around Baltimore, not too much in terms of rain and storms, but we do have some strong, even severe storms starting to move into parts of Maryland. That is what we're dealing with over the next few hours. Some showers and storms. There is the potential for heavy rain, gusty winds, and even hail at times. We're under a severe thunderstorm watch, and this is for all of the areas in pink. This runs through 11 p.m. Notice this is as we deal with a stalled front and even a cold front to our north and to our east. That's leading to storms all the way into the New England area. Current temperature is around 91 with mostly cloudy skies. It still feels like it's in the upper 90s as the heat wave and the steamy conditions continue. We're seeing those numbers in the 80s and 90s around the state with more sunshine in southern Maryland and the eastern shore. As we head into the night, though, we'll have more clouds and showers and storms as our temperatures fall to the 60s and the 70s. We'll have a line of storms move across the state as we head into the night, and shortly after midnight, we're talking heavy rain and storms along parts of the eastern shore. This clears shortly after that, and we'll wake up to mostly dry and cloudy skies tomorrow. By the afternoon, there will be the chance for a stray shower. Most of us stay dry throughout the day, but it's the night when our rain chances increase. So around 10, 11 o'clock, showers and storms enter the area, and they'll continue even past midnight. There could be some heavy rain, a few rumbles of thunder and lightning, and this continues for a few more hours. But by daybreak, we're back to dry weather on Sunday morning. There could be an isolated shower, but rain chances pick up by the afternoon. We're talking showers and storms, and at times, the rain could be heavy. We'll have an unsettled pattern into next week, but we return to a nice and dry pattern on Thursday and Friday. Temperatures fall to the upper 60s and low 70s with rain and storms, and then warm again tomorrow. Coming up, I'll have a closer look at what to expect for the weekend and into next week in the exclusive 10-day forecast.
Put the power of the Weather Authority Storm Center in your hands. Just download the free WBFF Weather Authority app for your smartphone and use our powerful Doppler radar to follow storms right down to your street. Just go to your app store and search for WBFF to get started.
Weather Window, presented by the National Weather Desk.
Here's a view from inside the powerful hurricane known as Lee. It comes courtesy of the Air Force Reserve hurricane hunters who took a flight into the storm's eye wall, measuring the remarkable 165-mile-per-hour winds. The crew will likely fly back into Lee this weekend, providing reconnaissance to help the National Hurricane Center better understand Lee's strength and forecast future movements.
For more content like this, follow the National Weather Desk on Instagram.
Health officials urging Seattle public transit is safe after traces of meth and fentanyl were found on buses. Why some bus drivers say they need more protection against drug use. Seattle bus drivers are skeptical about the results of a new study about drug use on public transit. The University of Washington found traces of meth and fentanyl on most buses and trains, but health officials insist that it's not a risk. Jeremy Harris from our Sinclair sister station in Seattle has the story.
Nearly every sample taken from buses and trains in Seattle and Portland had either meth or fentanyl present in a 6-month study this summer.
The outcomes were good. Transit is safe. It was safe before, it remains safe.
But transit agencies say these results are good news because the level of meth and fentanyl in the samples is low.
From the public health perspective, the risk is minimal to negligible, both to operators as well as riders.
But in the same breath, Dr. Faisal Khan of the Public Health Seattle and King County says the study does not tell us anything new about the health impacts from chronic exposure to fentanyl in the air or acute exposure to fentanyl smoke. And the study says that the levels are not high enough for anybody to be getting high on board, but the complaint we've heard from bus drivers is that they're getting headaches after being exposed to fentanyl smoke.
Regrettably, there isn't enough research available just yet to quantify or explain the link between any possibility of secondhand smoke or exposure and the signs and symptoms that you've just talked about.
I just know I get really bad headaches from this exposure.
Stevan Williams is a Metro bus driver who used to work the night shift when drug use is most common.
I was feeling sick and he said, "Hey man, the guy right behind you is smoking." He was sitting on the next seat behind me, smoking.
He says the smoke gave him headaches and forced him off the job for the last 8 months.
They didn't talk to me when they did their study.
Stevan says the study doesn't tell the drivers anything they didn't know, and he wants safer conditions for both passengers and operators.
I talked to my co-workers. They don't feel safe.
You can't be the drug patrol for your bus and be concentrated on what everybody's doing back there.
Right.
We are getting ready for showers and storms tonight, and then we'll have